Buddy, I see a lot of familiar names on here, and so some of you might already be very aware of some of the work that we're doing. Big stuff, big stuff. And that really feeds into what we're going to be working on during this legislative session. So first and foremost, the home project, which really started back in January of 2022 when we decided to use some of our American Rescue Plan dollars to fund a contract with a nationally and expert organization called Mathematica to do an evaluation of our community-based service system. And that evaluation process took 12 months. It included data analysis as well as hundreds of interviews, focus groups, policy and procedure review, best practice review of what's occurring across the country. And the culmination of that really was the transformation plan and roadmap that we were building out of really high level things that we heard from Iowans that needed to change. And so we've been working on continuing to gather ideas and feedback in terms of how to make those changes. And we concluded a couple of weeks ago our Iowa Roadshow, which included 12 locations across the state where we had hometown conversations with folks. We had excellent participation at every single one. There were legislators at every one except Sioux City, which is a tremendous sign of interest and support for the work that we are doing. To really summarize pretty succinctly, because I could probably talk for hours about this and I only have 15 minutes, but we have a community-based service system that was really developed decades ago. It was developed in the 90s and hasn't evolved a whole lot since then. There are some spaces where we've made tweaks around the edges, but fundamentally there hasn't been a tremendous evolution in terms of how those services and programs are structured. And it's time. We are living in 2023, soon to be 2024. That's much different than the landscape of 1990. The needs of people are different. The possibilities of services and the innovations that have been brought forward are different. And so we need to evolve with that as well. And so there are three big components that we were talking about during our hometown conversations. One is really making our system easier to navigate. We have an incredibly complex system within Medicaid, but also within the broader HHS structure, whether that is through Medicaid, our MHDS regions, the area agencies on aging, how we connect effectively with other entities like school districts. All of those things are pretty siloed and also very, very challenging to navigate unless you have a secret decoder ring, right? And so that's one of the spaces that we are working on making better for Iowans, but also for us that work and live and advocate for the system. This is a win-win for everybody. Also, working on improvements to our case management system. We have a lot of really incredible folks who are case managers today. They are in it because their heart is in the right place, but we don't always support them in the way that we should or could. And so we're working on better ways to train and make sure that people are tooled up when they enter the world of case management, so that they know they don't need to know every single answer to every single question, but we need to give them a framework so they know where to go to find out what the answers are. We also need to work on level setting a bit so that case managers don't have caseloads of 70 people or more. They can't do an effective job, and the job that they want to do when they have to manage so many different cases. That just limits the amount of time that they're able to dedicate to each individual and their family systems. So really taking a pretty strong change in how we're looking at case management ratios, making sure that we get those down to a level where people can be fully engaged and dedicated to doing everything that they can to support individuals' needs for Medicaid and non-Medicaid services. And then the waiver redesign. We, like I said, our waiver structures really haven't changed in a number of decades. We have 7 home and community-based waivers today, most of which are based on like a diagnostic eligibility criteria to become eligible. Each one of the waivers has different services that are available, different caps, different ways that we pay providers, and that is very confusing, and also doesn't always make sense because an individual has a number of different needs, and if all of those needs aren't captured within the home and community-based waiver structure that we have today, they're having to make really hard decisions about, like, well, this waiver, I qualify for 2 waivers. This waiver has one thing that I really need, but this waiver has another thing that I really need, and having to choose between 2 things that they need is never a place where we want folks to be. And so when we contemplate the waiver redesign, one of the big concerns that I've heard from folks is that, you know, they think about this through the lens of a budget neutral exercise. And that's really not what we're contemplating here. We know that there's going to need to be an investment. We're not going to take from the intellectual disability population, for example, and give it to the physical disability population. What we want to do is take the good and the things that are really meaningful within the waiver the home and community-based waiver structure, and broaden those so that they are available to more people. So we don't have a structure finalized yet. We heard some really good feedback on what people want us to contemplate as we're thinking about the changes that we're going to make, including making sure that we're thinking through transitions from infancy to school age, from school age to adulthood, from adulthood to aging, and that we're thinking through those really big milestone transition moments in a way that the waiver can, whatever waiver structure we come up with, can facilitate that seamlessly. And the other things that we are hearing is making sure that we have services that are specifically, you know, we don't want to over generalize. We still need to have services that include specialization in certain areas so that people can receive individualized services that meet their needs. That's always been the goal, and there have been some structural limitations for us to really get there effectively and align with what our values are within the state. And so I think that all feeds into a lot of what we're going to be working on this legislative session. Some of that is going to require changes in the law. Some of it's going to require some considerations for investment. And then coming alongside that, this will be our second year of our annual provider rate review, which we had not done previously. We didn't really ever evaluate how sufficient our provider rates were until the legislature gave us money to invest in specific areas. And so what we have come up with is a process where every year we look at we take half of the providers and half of the services that we cover through Medicaid, and we do that evaluation, and we provide that information to the legislature along with recommendations of where we think investments are most acutely needed. And home and community-based providers are going to be in the mix for this annual provider rate review. And so we know that, you can, with the home project, a lot of that is process changes and rearranging what the waivers look like, but you can do that all day long. And if you don't have enough access and capacity on the provider side, it's not going to mean very much. And so we know that there's going to need to be some conversations around provider rate investments on the HCBS side as well, to create a system where there is sufficient access. I'm not going to sit here and be really naive and think that that's going to happen in 1 year. This might require some investments over the next several years, but that's some conversations that we're looking at having as well. Carrie, what did I miss?
I think you did a great job.
You were Amy Campbell for a moment. I'm glad to see you're Carrie
I
Miller.
was, yeah, I switched it back. Hi, everyone. I don't really have much to add. Director Matney did a really great job. Is there anything specific you want to hear about? The department, we haven't quite finalized our upcoming policy recommendations for the next legislative session. So I will just give you a quick heads up. There are a couple of items we might be pursuing. The first is really kind of eye-opening in terms of our alignment process. So it's more administratively burdensome, and we're trying to kind of lift some work off of our teams. The department has we've strived to be super open and transparent. And so I'm going to probably have a bill next year that actually reduces some of our legislative reporting. But I am going to go out of my way to make sure everyone is comfortable with those recommendations. We have over 115 legislative reports that we submit. Those are all reviewed and vetted and drafted by our wonderful team. And some of them are only viewed by one person. So it's a lot of work. And the LSA website lets us know who is actually reading those materials, not who, but how many people are actually reading those materials. And some of those reports are based on defunct programs that have never been funded. And we submit the same thing year after year. So with awesome initiatives like our Medicaid dashboard, for example, there is so much information the department is putting out there. We want it to be accurate and timely. And these legislative reports, legacy legislative reports, don't help us do that. So I will work with Amy to get some time on the books so she's well aware of what we're looking at getting rid of. And if there's anything that you all feel is super helpful, I'm happy to take that suggestion out. But I just wanted to give you a heads up that that was coming and that I'm excited about that work. And then we also have some things related to confidentiality. So I'll have another bill related to confidentiality across various sectors of the agency. Nothing disability specific. However, it's things like when Iowa Code was drafted, it didn't contemplate us communicating with tribal communities related to dependent adult abuse, for example. So there are some things that would be very helpful in terms of child protection and adult protection that we want to kind of get sorted out. So we will have more information on that as well as we move into session.
Hey, I just wanted to jump in, Carrie and Liz, and give you guys big kudos for your new website. I don't know if anybody on the call has had a chance to go around and look at the new structure to the website or the dashboard. The dashboard is like you could lose a whole day just messing around in there with the information. It is so easy to get that information. And, I don't think honestly many people know how much data and information and analytics that you guys have throughout the legacy 3 departments or 4 departments, I guess. So I'd encourage people to go out and look at the site. It's I found the old website difficult to find things. So I had no problem navigating it. And so I think that if you haven't had a chance to do that, mess around with the dashboard because there is so much information on there. And I think we all owe the department a big thanks for spending the time and effort and resources to do that.
And then maybe one more note about the budget. So Director Matney is going to be with me at the Capitol quite a bit next session. She's stepping into kind of a new role that will lead our budget division, and we plan to redraft our HHS budget. So it will look different than it has in other years. We're super excited about it, but just please know Amy, you don't need to panic. We will tell you where everything has moved to. We will have lots of good explanations and charts and side-by-sides so that everybody can see where things landed. And really the goal of that is to be more transparent. So currently in the HHS budget, there's I don't know, at least 30 transfers, and they're located in all different areas of the budget. So unless you're our accounting team, you don't really have a good insight as to what we're spending and where the money's going. So now that we're HHS, we don't need as many transfers. So we're just trying to kind of work through those things and make a more streamlined bill is the goal.
Great. Well, that's all great information, Carrie and Liz. We appreciate you guys jumping on and sharing all that information. And then please just keep us abreast of how our council and our advocates can help you guys this session, because it's going to be stressful, I imagine, for everyone.
I am not going to acknowledge the stress level yet. However, it will be, there has been a lot of effort, just I would say generally across the state, in putting thought and intentionality around some of these other or around all of these efforts surrounding home and community-based services. I know that some folks on this call are actually on our consumer steering committee that has been in place since 2022, and we couldn't have gotten here without that participation and just expertise and guidance. And so generally speaking, I just thank all of Iowa, but specifically folks on this call today for being so engaged in the conversations and for keeping an open mind. Change is often scary, but what I have experienced is folks pushing them through and past the fear of change and really in a space where they're excited for the change and can't come soon enough, right?
I'm not seeing any questions in the chat. Or Amy, do you see anybody with their hands up?
Liz and I love questions.
You guys might be getting off easy today.
Hey, it's Friday.
I think they put in their time on those road shows too.
That's right. That's right. Well, thank you so much. I hope everybody has a wonderful Friday.
Thanks, Liz. Thanks, Carrie.
Thanks, Liz. Thanks, everyone.
All right, Amy, am I turning it over to you?
I think you're turning it to Carlin because I
Okay.
just saw our next speaker just joined. So,
Great.
we're kind of segueing into away from the policy side and looking at what's going on coming up here with the Iowa caucuses. So we wanted to talk really quickly about that, especially with the changes that are being made. And so I'm going to turn it over for Carlin for some introductions.
Hi, everyone. I'm Carlin Crow with Iowa DD Council, and I work on public policy here. And as Amy mentioned, we're shifting gears a little bit here on our Capitol chat to talk about voting, which is a very important priority for the DD Council. There's been a history of the council providing very concise, consistent, and helpful information about how to vote, your voting rights, and information on candidates also is one of the many ways that we try and assist. And coming up, if you haven't heard, is the Iowa caucuses. And probably if you're not confused, then you're one of the few about what is actually happening with the caucuses this year. And we have invited representatives from both the Iowa Democratic Party and the Republican Party to join us today because they have the inside scoop, and hopefully will be able to give us some insight on what each party has put together for their caucus plans, which is coming up January 15th, right? 16th. And I'll let Aaron, 15th. It's Martin Luther King Day. So I'm thrilled to be able to introduce Aaron Moynihan, who is the communications director for the Iowa Democratic Party, to kick us off here. And go ahead, Aaron, glad to have you here, and thanks for joining us.
Yeah, hi everybody. And actually I'm a senior communications advisor, so just a little tweak on my title, but
sorry, didn't mean to downgrade you.
Oh, you're okay. I'm really glad to be here with you all and to sort of go over the changes to our caucus process and answer any questions you may have. So I'm going to kind of explain first the overview, big picture of what exactly has changed in 2024 for the Iowa Democratic Party caucuses, and then happy to sort of flag some important dates for you all, and then answer any questions you may have. So first, our Iowa Democratic Party caucus is changing. It's basically going to consist of two parts. It's going to be a part where we meet in person on January 15th to conduct party business. And then there's going to be a separate part about presidential preference, and that is going to be conducted through the mail. So typically, if you remember back, in 2020, if you participated in an Iowa Democratic Party caucus, you would have to show up on caucus night to cast your presidential preference. We made the decision, I think in 2021, I can't remember, it all blends together, to make the presidential preference portion of the caucus more accessible. And that is going to be entirely done through the mail. So to kind of give you a little quick, I'll start about January 15th and kind of what we're preparing for that, and then sort of the other deadlines coming up. So if you show up to caucus night on January 15th, what you can expect is you're going to check in, and we're going to be basically, hold on, I got to get to my notes to make sure I say this right. What we're doing that night is electing what we call unbound delegates and alternate delegates to county conventions. And we'll also be electing central committee members and discussing platform resolutions that can be brought to the state convention over the summer. So if you're not really a political nerd and you're kind of confused about that, I'm kind of sharing this as like, it's the typical party business. It's what we do. We're required to do every year to make sure that we meet, our bylaws and constitution, and also Iowa law. So it's kind of, that's the part on January 15th. And then the other portion is the mail-in preference. So right now, you can go to iowademocrats.org and click on the 2024 caucus webpage and request a presidential preference card. So a preference card will look very similar to a ballot. You can request one will be sent to you, you fill it out, and then you put it back in the mail. The deadline to request a presidential preference card is February 19th. That's the last day to request one. And then the results from that presidential preference will be released on March 5th. So on actual caucus night, we won't be, going into preference groups if you've ever participated in that. We won't be taking any sort of, vote on who you want to be, who you prefer for president. That won't happen on the physical caucus night. That portion is all done through the mail. And the reason we did that is a lot of people I know have heard they've struggled with getting to caucuses is a barrier. It's a cold night, maybe in January, you don't want to show up. Maybe you are working a third shift and you can't make it. And so we made the decision, because so many people are interested in the presidential part of it, to make it just purely mail-in. So I can get into a little more details about the mail-in process, but a couple big deadlines to sort of share with you are get your presidential preference card request in by February 19th. And then I've shared with some other folks that if you are interested in participating in the in-person precinct caucuses on January 15th, we have accommodation requests, and those need to be submitted to us by January 2nd. So, and I can print this all in an email for you guys and you can share it more widely, but that's kind of the big deadline coming up, is if you want to participate in person, we're trying to get in those accommodation requests as soon as we can, so our county parties can make sure as many people can participate as possible. So I think that's kind of my big overview. I know it's a lot and it's a little confusing, but I'm trying to explain. My hope is that it actually is a really simple process. And so there's no crazy caucus math. There's no crazy going into a corner and fighting over, and it's very cut and dry. And I think sometimes that folks are expecting it to be complicated, and it really is just, we're trying to make it as simple as possible. So I'm happy to answer questions. If you have any concerns to share or insight, happy to sort of take that as well.
I have two questions right away. Remind me of the time for caucus night. Is it 7:30?
It's 7 p.m.
7 p.m. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I can, every 4 years you kind of forget what time.
I know, but I will say that check-in is going to start around 6:30. We're requiring all locations to begin check-in at 6:30. And so if we're telling folks that if you need some extra time to get somewhere, make a plan for that, just to be on the safe side, because if you're not in line by 7 p.m., you can't participate.
That was my other question, is if, even though the crazy math isn't involved, if you still have those hard cutoff times. Okay, that's good to know. Mm-hmm. Also, we always encourage people to bring resolutions. So will that still be a part of the process?
Yeah, that's the platform resolution discussion. I think I might have gone quick about everything, but yes, that is something that will still take part in and will still happen, and we'll still have a process in place that can go on up the ladder, to the county convention or state convention and all that.
I assumed that was what it was, but I just thought I'd be clear.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else have questions while we have Erin here? I think, Emily, you had a poll that you were going to put up just to get a quick view on how many people are planning on caucusing. You don't have to say which caucus. You don't have to say which one, but we might as well just go ahead and pull that up there too, if you're planning on going on January 15th. And I know people have childcare and other things that they have to work around.
Yep. And I will say that, like, sometimes party business can be a little intimidating for folks if they're not really, in the weeds and that kind of thing. So I will say that if you just want to do the presidential preference, that is available right now on our website, and those will start being sent out on January 12th. So you can still participate in that way if you're not sure if you don't want to do the party business portion.
And just so everybody knows, I couldn't remember if I had requested mine yet. So I went on just to see how long it took. And I literally got it done while Carlin was introducing Aaron. So it's really pretty simple.
Yeah, and we're really lucky at the party. We have a very involved disability caucus. And we've been, we're making sure that we're meeting, their needs and having them look over things. So if there are things that you see, we're happy to sort of, take those into account and look and see how we can make it better. I shared this with somebody yesterday, as we're proud to be the party of Tom Harkin. And so we want to make sure we're living up to those values.
Last call for questions. Just unmute, raise your hand, put it in the chat. Aaron, you got off easy. No.
Oh, wow. Okay. I was going to say, maybe I've got this down now.
I was going to say, you explained it very well. So thank you.
Okay, good. Yeah. And if you have any other follow-up questions or anything, feel free to reach out to me and we can make sure you get those answered.
Thanks so much for doing this.
Okay,
Yep.
no problem.
Thanks for joining us.
You guys have a great weekend.
Bye.
So it looks like our poll is, we have more people saying no than yes to participating, but also 19% aren't sure yet. And so hopefully, maybe today through some of our discussions or with a resource that we have put together with not just the help of Amy, but Amy really drove the content for a new caucus guide that explains what Aaron just laid out and also what's going on the Republican Party of Iowa side of things. And it can be a resource to help you maybe understand better what's going on. If you've never participated in a caucus before, it can be kind of intimidating, but there are really good reasons to participate in person in your caucus if you can go, because it's a great time to sit down with your neighbors and talk about concerns that are important to you. And Amy explains the resolution process in that guide. And I don't know, Amy, if you want to go through that now, or do we want to talk about the Republican caucuses first?
I think we want to talk about the Republican caucuses first, and I want to first put a plug in. We put out so many requests to get somebody to participate and got no response. And actually just got Aaron confirmed this week. So I think it shows that things are evolving with the process, but I'm just going to kind of go through what I know. And then I'm going to ask if anybody has any questions we can follow up with the parties. I will probably go through some of the legislators I know to get those answers because we weren't able to get a response. But I would just say that I'm going to stop sharing real quick. That the Republican Party caucus has always been much more streamlined than the Democratic Party caucus, where you have the preference groups. In the Republican caucus, they have basically a vote. It's a ballot that they put in the box or raise their hands depending on which caucus you go to. And it's just straight up vote. There's no rounds of preference groups. So they are also meeting on January 15th at 7 p.m. Their rules will probably include the same. You have to be in line by 7 p.m. to participate. And you have to be a registered Republican voter to participate. So if you want to participate in the Republican caucus, you need to register or change your registration to a Republican before that night or at that site. So at the night you can switch. So if you're an independent or you're a Democrat, you can still participate. You just need to change your party registration. Then you can go back the next day and change it back to no party, independent, libertarian, Democrat, whichever you happen to do. And I do know some independents want to do that because they want to have another choice and want to have make a comment on what their choice would be. So that is a possibility. And they have the same process with resolutions and selecting committee chairs and committee members and platform committees. And they have a committee on rules. They actually have a committee on committees. So, I mean, there's all kinds of ways to participate. And plus you just get to meet some of your neighbors that are like-minded. So that goes for both parties, but the Republican Party will follow the very same process, except they will vote that night and they will release their results that night. The Democrats won't release their notes until after other states have gone ahead of us in March. So I think that is the key difference there. Does anybody have any questions about that, or did I miss something, Carlin, on that side?
No, I think that was pretty clear. It's good to know. I mean, the things that are easy to remember is that everybody can participate on January 15th, no matter which party you're in, or if you're an independent or, want to check out and participate in your the other party that you're maybe not registered for currently. So participation is available. We hope that it's accessible. If you do have any accessibility issues, when you do go to your caucus, let us know, because we want to be able to contact or could be an advocate for you for making changes there. And both parties have made commitments to be more accessible, so we hope that that's the key. But participation is what we want to encourage. However you plan or feel comfortable doing it. As you heard, there's kind of two ways to do it. If you are participating on the Democratic Party side, you can do just the mail-in or participate in your in-person caucus to talk about the platform and the issues that are important to you. So we wanted to emphasize participation, and that's also why we created the caucus guide, which goes into a lot more detail and is available on our website. I'm looking, I don't see anybody that has questions, but if you do, feel free to raise your hand or put them in the chat and we can answer that way also.
Yeah, I just popped up a piece of the caucus guide. So I did drop that into the chat, the link, but one of the things that you can do when you get involved is become a delegate to the conventions. And those can be kind of exciting depending on what year and how many people are running. But you have your precinct caucuses. It all starts with that, and then moves on to the county conventions, which we do have the dates for those. And you do have to participate in person in these conventions. So, and they tend to be in other, you'll have to go to your county seat, or in a district convention, it'll be within your congressional district. So probably be a larger city within that district. And then it goes to the state convention, which is normally held either in Ames or Des Moines, somewhere central, in the summertime. And that's when kind of everything becomes official for the state. But they also go through the same process where they pick a national delegate that gets to go to the national convention, which are really exciting places, crazy places. If you have sensory issues, that might not be the best place to go because those are pretty chaotic, but there are opportunities to participate. And I know that like some of our allies in advocacy have are a part of the state party committee structure and have led committees. So I know that that's one way to make an impact if you want to do that. But I wanted to show that. And then the caucus guide does have like the dates that were discussed before. So like what the dates on the Democratic caucus are in there. The one we didn't have, and I will amend this, is the request for accommodations by January 2nd. I would suggest that probably not just for the Democrats. I would suggest by early January, you should probably request accommodations with either party. We know that in the past, both parties have been really willing to work with the DD Council to make sure everyone can participate. So getting in contact with your county chair is probably the best way to do that. You can go to the state parties as well for those requests. But that, yeah, and then we mentioned the resolution process. That's a really great opportunity to get your issue into that party's platform, which is the statements by the party of what they support. And so, you know, that's an opportunity, and we kind of explain it a little, but then we give you a resolution template that you can use. You don't have to. You can see the links there to the Republican and Democratic's current platforms to see how things are kind of written there already and what they've already included. And then we've kind of shown, that's just another kind of template guide. But then we also have some sample resolutions that I actually grabbed from my caucus when I was participated once. I used to chair my caucus too when I lived in Beaverdale, but and that you can run for caucus chair too. But that's just kind of some suggestions that, you know, you could choose just one thing, like wages matter. We support living wage for direct support professionals. Or if you want to urge Congress to update the Americans with Disabilities Act, or, you know, if you want to talk about something with inclusion and meaningful choices and where people live and competitive integrated employment, you could do all of them, or you could do one of them, or write something up that you like as well. And that's another example of one that passed. So that was one from, I believe, NAMI, the National National Alliance for the Mentally Ill. I can't remember what I just call them NAMI now, so I don't ever remember what it stands for. And you can tell I have a cold. I apologize here. And then we do have links for each of the candidates, and this was the candidates as of when we wrote this. I see that I probably need to. Is it the Minnesota governor that's running now? On the Democratic side, I probably need to add his contact information on there as well. So I would suggest keep going back to our website. We're not printing this. We're only putting it out electronically. So we will continue to update it as we find more information about each person. So
Thanks for sharing. Go ahead.
Yeah. Nope, that was it. I was just rambling around until people had questions, but
Yeah, any questions? Go ahead. You can put them in the chat or your
if you want us
welcome.
to follow up, if you have questions that we may not know the answer to, we're happy to follow up with the parties for you. Okay. Well, we didn't have much more. I was going to show you a couple things, and then if we have any other comments that people just want to bring up, you know, today we'll do that. I'm going to share another screen real quick. With just the dates. I know we shared this a little last two times, but let me get for some reason I need two screens, I think. So just with the legislative session coming up, our first printed issue of InfoNet will come out after the governor's speech on January 9th. We'll get that written and sent out in the mail and email within the week, probably a week after. But January 8th is when session begins, and I call it speech week. It's like everybody gets back. It's first week of school, you know, they all like each other and they give their speeches about what they're going to do for the year. The governor will speak on January 9th, Tuesday. She's been doing it in the evenings. And their broadcasts, so you can watch them or you can watch it live on the website, where she'll release her budget priorities and her policy priorities. And usually within that time, we get the links to her budget and everything that's usually released as she starts her speech. And then the next day is the Chief Justice of the Iowa Supreme Court talks about their priorities and focus. And then on that Thursday is the National Guard Adjutant General talks about their priorities. And that kind of wraps up that week. However, since this is a shorter session, it's a 100-day session, we have a really short timeline when legislators have to request bills. So if they want to have their name on a bill so that they are sponsoring it, they have to request those bills be drafted by January 19th. That's just the request. It doesn't have to be filed and assigned to a committee by then. It just has to be requested. So that's just the end of the second week. That's a fast turnaround. I will note that committee chairs and leaders can still request them at any time. So like Representative Ann Meyer chairs Health and Human Services. She can still request what's called a study bill. That's when you see that HSB number, House Study Bill, or SSB, Senate Study Bill. It doesn't have a person's name on it. It's just a committee bill. And so those can be done after that deadline, but you probably don't want to wait too much longer because they have to be out of committee by February 16th. That's what we call the first funnel. So they got to be out of their first committee by February 16th. And then they have to have gotten out of the chamber, their first House or Senate. They have to be voted out of one chamber. And then they have to be out of committee in the other chamber by March 15th. So you can see you have a short time frame. You got about a month between when you have to request a bill and when they have to get it out of committee, and then another month when they have to get it through one house and into the other and out of committee by March 15th. And then a month later is the end of session or the last paid day. So they could go longer. I don't think they want to. And then the governor will have 30 days to speak. So it's really about a month, you know, to get things done. I will also note March 15th is another important deadline. That's when candidates who want to run for the legislature or Congress have to file their papers. So if they want to run, they have to file their papers by March 15th. So that's also the date when legislators will know if they have somebody running against them. We'll also know if legislators are planning on or going to retire. And so that'll be another interesting deadline there. That's usually pretty powerful motivation to get done, is when they see who's running against them or if they have a primary. So but I just wanted to go through those deadlines, and then I will open this up, but I have our next 4 months of capital chats, and we're following the same process where we're going to do it the final Friday of the week or of the month at 11. So those are those dates, and we'll have those registrations up soon. That link. But I'll stop it there and see if anybody has any questions for this last couple minutes. Can't see the chat anymore. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. This will be up on our website too, if you didn't catch the PDFs and the everything. I know it's December. It's going to get cold and crappy today.
We had a quiet group today.
Everybody's thinking about their Christmas lists. Does anybody have anything they want to share with all others while we're on here? We got 7 minutes left. Otherwise, we'll let you go. Going once. Going twice. Third time. Balloons, love it. Thank you, Andrea, for interpreting.
Thank you.
That was a wonderful ending there. All right. Oh, go ahead.
I just said we do hope you guys all have a great holiday season if we don't talk to you before then, and we'll get ready to do some advocating after the first of the year.
Yes, at your caucus and beyond.
Yes.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Care everyone.